Welcome to Murray County Schools. I want to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please. Mr. Dudley?
Miss Parker? Miss Kinzer?
Here.
Miss Hopkins?
Here.
Mr. Pennings? Mr. Moore? Mr. Atkinson? Mr. Sims? Here. Mr. Beaver? Here. Mr. Howell? Here. Miss Morency? Mr. Dudley's present. We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley. We now ask Hampshire School to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And when we have our moment of silence, would you all please remember Donna Morency and her family and the loss of her husband. I want to remind all of you of our mission, and that's to educate children and put them first, as always. Our first item of business is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Mr. Beaver has moved. I heard a second from Mr. Penning. Any discussion? Then we're ready to vote. No. I assume, okay.
Mine is yes, it's logged in.
Ms. Hopkins votes yes. I'm assuming that vote passed, since it's not up on our monitors. No. But we will move on. Oh, there it is. Okay. Thank you. That motion passes. Next on the agenda is the recognition of teachers by Mr. Ford, the Randolph principal. It's not red.
Test. Okay. Dr. Marzak, Chair Kinzer, board members, thank you for giving me just a minute tonight to recognize some teacher leaders at Randolph Howell Elementary. Teacher leadership is a very important part of school culture, and Jessica, Amanda, Mandy, Bonnie, Sarah, will y'all come up here? I'll be quick. Ms. Kinzer, I know you like that. 3D printing technology is something new that we've introduced at our school the last couple of months. So we had students actually design some awards for these teachers. They did not know they were going to get these tonight. Over the last 3 years, the first four, can you come down here, Mandy? Mandy is our data informatics teacher leader. Jessica and Sarah are our STEM teacher leaders. And then Amanda is our PLC teacher leader. The last 3 years, these four teachers have worked hand in hand with me to move our school forward with our school improvement plan and different things that we've done for students to push innovation and creativity. We couldn't do it without them. So they're all four going to get an award. They all look kind of the same. Kids designed these just to remind them how bright their flame has burned over the last 3 years for kids and the passion they've shown. Yay! And then our fifth teacher leader tonight, she may not realize she's a teacher leader, but Bonnie Roberts is our ELL teacher at Randolph Howell. Bonnie is probably hands down the best ELL teacher in the state of Tennessee, if not the whole southeast region. I would stand by that and argue that with anybody. Bonnie has a caseload of all. Anyway, you guys can probably hear me without the microphone. I have seen Bonnie go above and beyond for the last 8 years for the kids in our school. We're working with almost 50 kids. Some of those kids are non-English speakers. She's the only ELL teacher in our building. She works with the classroom teachers. She works with me. I have seen her take non-English speaking students and over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, not give up on them. For example, we have a 4th grade student this year that Sarah's had in class before, who's now speaking English. She's asking questions. She's speaking to people. This is a kid a year ago, even the start of this year, she was scared to come into school, crying in the parking lot. So Bonnie, much deserved. But again, just thank you for an opportunity. I think it is important to recognize the excellent teachers we have in our schools. And these are 5 of the finest in the county.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Most impressive. Next on agenda is more exciting things, and that's recognizing our valedictorians and our salutatorians, and Dr. Woodard and Miller. Let's meet these people. Huh? They're coming. They're going to speak whenever they're done.
Chair Kinzer, Dr. Marzak, school board members, again, we thank you for this opportunity to recognize these fine students and the accomplishments that they have made throughout the course of their school career. We're very proud of them, and it's always exciting to know that at this board meeting we're going to get to recognize these students for their outstanding performances. We also will go ahead and just recognize that we know it's softball, baseball, soccer, tennis, I don't know what other sports, and so many times some of these students are not here because they're participating in those activities, but we still want to recognize them at least. So from our valedictorians and salutatorians from Central High School, we have Lillian Willis as valedictorian. And students, following these presentations, if you would go right outside the boardroom, Ms. Doddridge is going to take a picture, okay? From Central High School, our salutatorian, Brooklyn Pickle. Culleoka Unit School, Cameron Tullis, valedictorian. Anna Burcham, salutatorian. Hampshire Unit School, Kiera Thompson, valedictorian. Coble Brooks, salutatorian. Mount Pleasant High School, Laura Gullidge, valedictorian. Maddie Hay, salutatorian. Santa Fe Unit School, Alexander King, valedictorian. Preston King, salutatorian. Spring Hill High School, Deep Patel, valedictorian. I apologize if I say this one wrong. Kylie Tucker, salutatorian. So I want to congratulate each of these students, and again, if you all would just step right outside the door, Ms. Doddridge will take a picture. Next group of fine young students that we want to recognize is our Girls State and Boys State delegates. For Girls State from Central High School, we have Chesney Bullington, Ginger Morrow, and Tamaya Ellis. From Culleoka Unit School, we have Catherine Prim and Emily Brashears. From Hampshire Unit School, Katie Pugh. Mount Pleasant High School, Krishna Patel and Phoebe Hurt. Santa Fe Unit School, Jenna McFarland. Spring Hill High School, Lydia Melenchenko, Caitlin Durham, and Isabella Holtgren. And our Boys State delegates from Central High School, Hunter Glasgow, Chance Noble, and William Patterson. Culleoka Unit School, Preston Bagsby and Ethan Hardison. Hampshire Unit School, Jay Marks. Mount Pleasant High School, Jacob Campbell. Santa Fe Unit School, Briar Mabry. Spring Hill High School, Hunter Haggard. My bifocals are in the wrong spot. Let's give all these students a round of applause. If you guys would exit out the door. The next group of students that we're going to recognize tonight is our governor's school candidates. And please know that we usually have some more of these to recognize in May because some of them don't get notified as early as other schools. So for governor's school from Central High School, Chandler Michael is going to teaching at UT Chattanooga. Trinity Barnett, the arts at Middle Tennessee State University. Isabel Brickner, the arts at Middle Tennessee State University. From Spring Hill High School, Mylan Patel from the for UTK for Science Engineering. Sorry. So congratulations to each of these students. We have one more recognition we'd like to make tonight, and this is for a student who's made an outstanding accomplishment in their school career. From Central High School, a National Merit Scholar recipient, John Quinn. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to recognize these students.
Thank you so much. Congratulations to all of them. Next on the agenda, the night that we have someone lead us in the pledge, we always try to give the principal a little time to highlight their school. And so, Miss Kathy, come tell us about Hampshire.
I'm honored to be able to tell you some great things that are going on at Hampshire this school year. In the summer, our ag camp students and our CTE ag students actually planted a vineyard with the help of Keg Springs Winery. So we will have grapes. They said it would take about 3 years for the grapes to come in. And then our students plan on making grape jelly, grape juice, and there was something else. So we will be, no, it was not wine, it was not wine. So we will be letting you know when that is ready. Actually, Keg Springs is going to let the students go through the entire process so they know how to make the grape juice and the grape jelly. Also, our high school students were able to go to UT Knoxville in the fall to the Ag campus. We spent a majority of our time at the Ag campus, but we did get to go over to the larger campus. So they really enjoyed that. And then this spring, we celebrated Ag Career Day because a lot of people, when they hear ag, they think, oh, farming. Well, it's a lot more than that. So we had many businesses come, and the students got to learn a lot about the different careers there are with ag. Our construction class has actually built a press box for our baseball team. So if you get a chance, just drive by and look at what they've done. It really looks good. We're putting a little ad in there. We're having our greenhouse sale right now. This week is the last week, so if you would like some plants, please go and get them. We purchased an elementary greenhouse with funds that we had actually raised having fish fry. So our elementary group has a greenhouse, and our CTE Ag program has a greenhouse. Our students have been taking field trips. One of the field trips that we went on was to Liberty Trace Farms, and I don't know if you know about that, but it's a farm in Hampshire that specializes in beef, pork, and chicken, and they raise everything there. And they also do vegetables, and they sell them at the farmer's market. So our students got to go through that. And then we have worked this year on applying for a $25,000 grant. We don't know if we have it yet, but it's through Montana. And what our vision is to have a larger greenhouse so that we can produce cucumbers, tomatoes, and lettuce to sell to not only our cafeteria, but the other cafeterias in Maury County School District and the local restaurants. So that's one of the things that we are working on. You know about our USDA grant that for so much time we couldn't tell you about it because it was embargoed. Well, we're using those funds now, and so some of our teachers are doing PDs. We also have a group of teachers this summer that will be doing externships. So they will be job shadowing at various organizations that deal with ag-based businesses, and then they will come back, get together, and write curriculum, ag-based curriculum for all the teachers and students K through 12. Working on our keys. We know that some students are not ready for college when they graduate. They really don't know if they're going to go to work. They don't know if they're going to TCAT. And so myself, the school counselor, and the school attendance clerk actually went to the United States Marine Corps boot camp this year, and they put us through boot camp. But we have a better understanding of what students have to go through, or what young men and women have to go through if they're going to go through boot camp. So we're better able to help our students make some decisions when it's time to leave the nest. One particular item that I want to talk to you about really quick, a professor at University of Tennessee at Knoxville, Dr. Richards, has asked that myself and 2 other teachers accompany her to Bosnia, Africa this summer. She would like us to provide PD, and UT Knoxville is taking care of all of this. Provide PD to teachers in Botswana, teachers and principals, and we will work with them on utilizing the land around their school, which their school has no electricity and no water, but utilizing the land around them to have ag. And so we're going to be working with them on that, and then we'll bring our experiences back and share with everyone else. Last thing, and this just happened last week, Natchez Trace Parkway, a park ranger there contacted us and would like us, like our students, to develop a plan for growing tobacco on their plot of land at the tobacco farm. I don't know where the tobacco farm is, but I will find out where it is. And then they want our students to carry out this plan. So that will be our next venture. Any questions?
Thank you so much. I want you to know I came to the career fair and I got a cutting for my grapes I'm gonna get to, and I think it'll probably be my grandchildren that'll make something from them. Because I'm not sure if they'll survive, but it'll take a long time. But it was really impressive. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next is MCEA.
Chair Kinzer, school board members, Dr. Marzak. First thing I want to do is affirm the board and central office and our MCA team as well in our collaborative conferencing sessions that we've had. We've had quite a few meetings, haven't we? Yeah, it's been a long process, and the training and all the other sessions we've had together, I want to affirm that time. So I thank both of you for the hard work that you've put in together with us on the conferencing. My topic tonight is very brief. It has to do with standardized testing, but I'm not here to complain about it. I'm here to affirm the work that the board and central office and MCA have demonstrated in trying to move to the ACT and Aspire as measures of testing student performance. You're bound to get pushback from the state. Okay, it's going to happen. Ms. Kinzer, they're going to come and they're going to say, why are you doing this? So rather than say we think it's the right thing to do, we're trying to give you some specific testimonies and evidence from teachers with eyes and ears and experience on the ground. Now, they don't mention their names, and that's to protect them. Not so worried about you all, but doesn't want the state to come after them. Who are these people? So we urge you to use these testimonies, and they're interesting reading. Doesn't take long. And that's just over a couple hours today, gathering these from different teachers, elementary, middle school, and high school levels, so you get a broad semblance of some of the information, some of the situations they're dealing with. So I want to encourage you to stay the course. Don't let it go. Keep doing what you're doing. We were glad to join you in the resolution, I think it was in February, to come on board and be with you and work together to say that ACT and Aspire is the way to go. I think maybe the last one there, somebody was in a school system where it worked, and they loved it. It's possibly the most positive comments on those papers that you have right at the end. This will change standardized testing to ACT and Aspire, help us get some control in our classroom, have more time for real instruction, and get them prepared for ACT and Aspire. So use those testimonies as examples of the difficulty in the present setup that we have with the present the testing. So thanks to your leadership as we work together on this, and we appreciate the opportunity to work with you on it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huebner, and thank you for the information and for joining with us. And together, we'll. Yes. All right. Thank you. Will you anyone check and see if there's a delegate, anyone have signed up to speak? No. Okay. Then moving on, is there any staff reporting? All right. The next item is consent items. Is there a motion to accept? Ms. Parker? Move to accept. Is there a second? Several seconds. Well, it will be the second. Any discussion? Then we're ready to vote. Are you voting, Denny? Have you voted? This way? Okay. That motion does pass. They're making fun of me. I'm not a math person. Under new business, the first item agenda is the back to school event. Dr. Woodard, do you want to speak to that, or is any discussion about this?
Good evening, Dr. Marzak, Chair Kinzer, members of the board. Mr. Nelson is here as a representative of the Fifth Sunday Fellowship. He'll be speaking in regards to this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you all. We shared on the last meeting about the specifics. Between that time, Dr. Woodard and I have worked out a MOU between the school system and the Fifth Sunday Fellowship. I think your attorneys had looked at it, our attorneys and insurance folks have looked at it, and we're all good. So, in case y'all have any questions.
Next question is, are we all good? Jake, you have looked at? Okay. Any discussion? Ms. Parker?
I just have a question.
Sure.
By being the official back-to-school sponsor, will you still be maintaining a separate account, or will that all have to go through central office to purchase items and things like that? And the reason why I ask is because another group that had done a back-to-school, that has done back-to-school efforts for the last several years told me that when they were looking at that, they were told by central office in a different administration that they would need, by being the official one, to go through central office. Are you going to maintain a separate account?
I think that we are going to be separate. I think the language reads more in partnership with. And so that's kind of where we settled to make it clear that we're partners with Maury County Public Schools, but 100% of our donations are what we do between the churches as well as people that partner with us. And so we will remain separate as far as specifically what Maury County is providing to us is really just access to schools and students. I mean, that's the gist of this partnership, is that we buy the supplies, we take care of the volunteers, we do everything that it takes to put it on. It's just simply a partnership to say that your reach to the students, the parents, the community, is pretty much what you do. So.
And that's great. And
sure.
I guess for central office, I guess you're going to have this event the weekend before school starts,
July
correct?
27th.
July 27th.
Right.
How central office do y'all envision that impacting teachers that are trying to get their rooms ready and in and out of the building and safety and whatnot?
Who's central office? Okay.
Whoever would like to answer it.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Right. So one of the things that we've done for the past, because we've hosted for the last 6 years at the Armory, right? And so and last year we served 1,000 people. The idea was possibly moving it to a school in order to accommodate an anticipation of somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 to 4,000 people. And so that's our aim, moving towards that direction. So, Dr. Woodard, were you about to say something? Okay. You're asking about the teachers now. Now, our next step is to talk with Central High School and get accommodations worked out there. And so, obviously, if they can't accommodate us, we can always do it in the National Guard Armory. That's already booked. That's already done. And so we were just trying to anticipate the traffic flow, the hectic nature of it. And so.
To answer your question, Ms. Parker, this event will be on a Saturday. It will be on a weekend, so it should not impact anything that's happening with schools during the working week.
Dr. Woodard. The week before school starts, the weekend before school starts. You know how dedicated our teachers are. There are a lot of them that are in the schools and are getting their classrooms ready. I'm just asking from a safety standpoint, what's going to be done to ensure, I mean, if you've got a whole flow of people coming in, the building's open, people wandering into people's classes, I mean, those are some of the concerns that I've had people raise to me about it. I'm not opposed to y'all using Central High School, but are we talking about Central High School like the gym and there won't be access to classrooms? Or, I mean, that's what I'm asking is what is central office going to do?
Sure. And I think all the logistics of that can be worked out with the principal, with the teachers, whatever space they allow us to occupy. We've in the early stages of working with a private security firm that's going to be on staff. We also have the Murray County Sheriff's Department that comes alongside us as well. From a security space, I think we're fine. But if there are areas of the building, obviously we don't need the entire building. More than anything, Central just works as a good location for access to go several ways out. At the Armory, there's really only one way in and one way out. And of course, it's on a major street. So Central is, of course, a little bit less hectic. And so we're just trying to plan ahead what's safer, what's safe this. And but if there needs to be, and I'm sure the principal will kind of walk us through and say, hey, let's stay in this space, gymnasium, this wing, lock the doors, whatever we need to do. We're going to have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 100 volunteers to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So.
Thank you. The discussion we had at the work session, we really did get into the weeds talking about this, that we didn't want this to have exclusivity, and we appreciate all you have done in the past and hopefully this event will be very positive. Mr. Howell.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to approve the MOU as presented. Any discussion? Then we're ready to vote. And that motion passes. Thank you.
One of the things, I think Mr. Dudley asked a question, and we talked about after we left as far as like other organizations kind of shying away from when there is one main partner. The young lady I brought with me, that they actually do it in Murfreesboro, she actually said that, and I want to tell you this before, it has just the opposite effect. That actually because you have a major partner, a lot more people get involved, and they know where to get involved. So I thought about that after the fact, that I think it's actually going to have a positive effect of bringing more people alongside and more churches and more organizations helping. So, but thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the subs proposal. This is something we talked about at the work session. Is there any discussion? Do I hear a motion to accept? Motion to approve by Mr. Pennings. Is there a second? Ms. Hopkins seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Dudley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, what are we talking about? 20, 21, 22 positions? What about in our budget? Is all these positions been put in our budget?
It was explained to me, and Dr. Woodard, you can speak to it if we need to, that these are funds that would be utilized for a sub, so it wouldn't require any extra funds. Is that correct? Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what happens if I'm sure a lot of these schools are going to need more subs than just the one. What procedures are we going to have as far as putting subs in the other classes?
Thank you, Mr. Dudley. That's a great question. So the purpose of this proposal is to address the gap that we have with filling some vacancies. There are times when we have teachers who are out, and for principals, if we don't have a sub, then teachers are asked to cover each other's classrooms, and we've been paying teachers to cover each other. That means that they're missing their planning time. We think that by having one sub in each school, one permanent sub position in each school, we can really help fill and address that gap. Obviously, we don't have the financial means to fill every vacancy that we have, but we really think that this will make a big impact. So that is the nature of this proposal. We will probably run this to the scenario that you're addressing, Mr. Douglas, where you have more vacancies than you have positions. We kind of have that situation now, but at least by having one sub in the building, that person can be mobile and can really help address issues. If you have a teacher who has to be out for some type of emergency, and it's midday, then that person can go immediately cover that room. And so we don't have to split the kids up. And so instruction can continue. So that is the nature of this proposal. And we're doing all this with the existing funds. We're just assigning someone to every school so principals will have the support. Got a couple of principals here in the audience. I am going to put them on the spot. That's the nature of working for me. Michael Ford, you come on up here. And Christine Potts, I'm going to call you up here. Guys, would you mind sharing with the board just a little bit about why you think this would be a good idea? I did talk with principals about this before I brought it to you, but they can share with you what some of the gaps are and how this would help fill some of the issues that they may have with the vacancies. Thanks.
Good evening. The biggest problem that we run into, sorry, I'm short, but I got a loud voice anyways. The biggest problem that we run into at school when it comes to subs, yes, we have a ton of teachers that are having to cover other teachers' classes. And a lot of the times it's because teachers are calling in at the last minute. You know, they'll call in at 6 o'clock. You know, I'm sick, I can't get here, or I got a sick kid, I thought they'd be okay, we were trying to push it, it didn't happen, it didn't go through. So we're really struggling to find subs at the last minute. And if we had somebody in the building, we could automatically plug that person into that position, and they can go ahead and get the day started, and then we can roll from there. But it's hard in the morning when we're short 4 or 5 subs, and you're playing a puzzle is what you're doing. And you're taking all the teachers that are on certain planning periods and see which ones are on planning, which ones are off, which ones can I plug in here, which ones can I plug in there. So it becomes a great big huge puzzle, and it would take some pressure off, even to cover one teacher, you know, that can take 2 classes, and we can put them in the auditorium. You know, so that helps quite a bit. So that's one of the main reasons, and it would also be awesome, you know, even if we didn't need that sub for the day, if we could use them in other areas. I've got a lot of different TAs, especially SPED TAs. I can't get subs for SPED TAs. Nobody wants to sub in my CDC room. And I get it. They're not comfortable with the children. And that's okay. But we still need somebody in there to help. And so if we had that person that was on board right there, you know, we can send them anywhere in the building. Your turn.
Yeah, I kind of talked at the work session about this, but Mr. Dudley, to answer your question, every school is a little unique with what they need, so I think principals would have autonomy with this to kind of fill those needs as they came up. Is it going to solve all the problems? No, but I think it's a really good step in the right direction just to kind of help alleviate some things like Dr. Potts just talked about. Elementary is a little bit different, so some of the stress our teachers see, you know, if an emergency comes up with a family, we don't really necessarily have anybody that can go into that room, so we have to split the kids up amongst maybe 3rd grade teachers, so that adds to their load. We can work with that, but this would give us a way to kind of navigate those waters when emergencies rise.
Okay, next question. How will we ensure that this one sub is not in the same classroom all year long, and the other classes are forgotten or get the substitute teacher that is not the most ideal situation?
I want to make sure I understand what you're asking, Mr. Dudley. You said, how will we ensure that the same person is not covering the same teacher every time?
Yes.
Every teacher who's going to be absent will create a vacancy in our Smart Find system. The permanent sub will be placed wherever the principal sees that there's an unfilled vacancy. So the principal would have the authority and autonomy to choose where that person goes. It is unlikely that one person would repeatedly be put in the same place. It's unlikely. Could happen, but it's very, very unlikely. Very unlikely.
I mean, I know any time a classroom has a substitute teacher, it's bound to affect our teaching ability and the kids' learning ability. But at the same time, we had to have some fairness that the other classrooms get use of this teacher too, and not just one select group.
Yes, sir. And I can set that, if you all will approve this, I can set that as an expectation moving forward. We can have that conversation and have principals sign an agreement where they understand that that is the expectation moving forward if you would support this proposal.
Okay. I can see that this may be a short-term help, but, you know, we've still got to come up with some more long-term solutions to our substitute teacher needs. You know, my understanding that our sub pay is still lower than the surrounding areas, and I believe that we've got to find a way of raising that substitute teacher pay.
Mr. Howe?
I kind of want to echo what you said. I do think this is a short-term solution. I think this is a very good solution. I don't see well, there's several things we could do, but this is, I think, viable. It doesn't shy away from the fact that we really do need to look at something like parallel, because that seemed to be the only way we can guarantee a 90 or 95% fill rate. I know it's expensive. I know we have a lot of expenses that we're, having to cut or had to cut. Do we know? It's going to be hard. I'm giving you a hard one. What kind of fill rate can you maybe possibly just throw a number out there? I'm not going to hold you to it, but I'm just saying, what do you think we can do with that? Like, what kind of fill rate do we expect?
Mr. Howe, that's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I know it is.
I can't predict what those absences and vacancies will look like going into next year.
Right.
This would just help us plug up the holes that we do have when we do have vacancies. I will agree with your first statement. We would like to have parallel back. However, we understand, the budget crunch that we're in right now. And so thinking forward, we thought, how can we try to provide a solution that is within our own budget? And so that's what this solution was born out of. And so I brought this proposal to principals. They liked the idea, and we thought that it would be of help. But I just really couldn't give you anything on.
I know. It was just. Yeah. I just wanted to see if you could.
You stumped me today. That's pretty good.
But and further and going forward, maybe and this is kind of a pilot program. Hopefully it works. Maybe we can expand upon this, because I see that it's like we budgeted $418 last year, thousand. And this is only going to cost $254, so maybe at later date we can expand this beyond, and maybe we do $500,000 or so, and maybe we have two per, at some point. Maybe that would help as well. Maybe that might be better than parallel. I don't know.
Initially, yeah, we had thought two per school, but we didn't want to ask you for 44 positions. So again, being respectful to the budget situation we're in, but yes, if this board would approve two per school, there would be some very happy administrators in this district. But we respect whatever you would be willing to give us, and thank you for your time tonight.
Well, even with two, I believe, that's really close to being within budget. I don't know how effective that would be at this point, but we'll see how it goes, and I mean, I anxiously await to see how it goes.
Any other discussion? Then we're ready to vote. I want to note while we're counting votes here that Mr. Atkinson has arrived. And that motion does pass. zoning and facilities is next, and the farm lease, is it not? Have I missed something? Let me go back here. Oh, Ms. Miller, I'm so sorry. Actually, and I'm,
Okay, Chair Kinzer, I totally understand. We kind of shared some information with you at the board work session on the purpose of purchasing these materials to support the instruction of students who have the characteristics of dyslexia. There is a law that's been in place for a couple of years that requires us to provide interventions to students who exhibit those characteristics. So this additional materials would help us to provide additional resources and training to teachers in order to meet the needs of those students.
any discussion or questions or motion? Oh, Ms. Parker?
Just have one question. I know it says in here that the law was passed in 2016. Why are we just now addressing this if it was done back in 2016?
We've actually been addressing it with our existing resources. We just haven't had the opportunity to provide training and additional resources for the teachers. So this would take us a step beyond what we use for regular intervention with students who do exhibit those characteristics to hopefully better meet those needs.
And then I saw that it's a sole source request. So I know that it indicated that it was proprietary for that company. I strongly dislike sole source. So tell me why this is the best program and how many other things you looked at, why this one stood out.
So I'm going to defer to Dr. Elkins. She's done the research on this with us. I do know there are only 3 existing programs in the state, and I believe 2 of them are currently being used by special education, which kind of limits us, but I'm going to defer to Dr. Elkins.
Good evening, everyone, and I apologize already. That time of the year kind of talk. As far as regarding the sole source requirements for this one program, when we were looking into researching additional resources that we already have and then trying to find something that we didn't already have, a lot of the resources that we have that we utilize for students with characteristics of disability can also be utilized in the special education program. So there is some overlap in regards to things like that. So when we're looking at other options out there, I actually, for those of you that know Jennifer Fleming, who knows a whole lot about dyslexia, I contacted her and she and I researched different programs that are out there. And the people that are the researchers behind a lot of the work with dyslexia, there's 3 of them. And we already owned 2 of the programs. So this is program number 3 of the 3 people that have done all the research. This is the newest program that's out there. And it is actually a resource that we don't have to replenish every year. And so it's not like it's one of those, for instance, Spire is one of them, and that's one that Special Education Department had already earmarked. But there is a recurring cost every year, and this is a one-time purchase for, at this point, and if we wanted to expand it, we could, but this is a one-time purchase.
So effectively, when we purchase this, we'll not have everything that the state recommends. The 3 as far as the 3 programs, because you said special ed's got 2, and we're getting the 3rd with this purchase. Is that right?
The state does not have specific recommendations for certain programs to use. They have a list of them out there. When I was looking at it, I went to the next level as far as like who's done the most research in regards to dyslexia. And I found out that the people that did the background research on dyslexia and the person that created this system was one of the people that spearheaded a lot of the research in regards to dyslexia. Is it on a list from the state? Yes, but it's the step beyond of, there's a big long list of stuff from the state, but I wanted to go to the best and try to be as effective and efficient with the purchases that we made to ensure that we are meeting the needs of all of the students that have these characteristics.
So I see that Ms. Ventura is here, so I'm going to put her on the spot since we're referencing some special ed overlap here. Is
calling you out on this.
the purchase of this going to enable you not to have to purchase some dyslexia tools, or is there anything, what would you say about this particular program to help our gen ed population that exhibit these characteristics?
Theoretically, it could reduce the number of students that are identified as being eligible for a learning disability, thereby reducing my numbers in special education. That's a theoretical bet right there. As you are all aware, earlier on in the packet, on the consent agenda, consent items, I purchased a large amount of Spire for over $10,000. I don't foresee that going away anytime soon. That is the number one intervention for reading, not just dyslexia. It is the number one intervention in the country right now. It is also highly recommended by the Dyslexia Center of MTSU. So, you know, that it serves both purposes. But theoretically, could this replace another program that I purchased? Yes, it could replace Barton, it could replace Wilson. It will depend on the number of students that I have and what their unique needs are. When you become eligible for special education, as you are all painfully aware, every time I've ever done my little song and dance in front of you, the I in IDEA is for individualized. So I'm going to look at a child very, very specific. You know, I have the luxury of looking at each individual child and trying to tailor to their needs, where the ladies that are on my left and right now are looking at a broad stroke approach. So theoretically, yes, I would say that would be 5 to 7 years in the making, though. I mean, we're just not, you know, I mean, when you look at our reading scores across the county, you know we struggle in that area. I don't think that's news to anybody here. So this will be another tool in the tool belt for our teachers.
We're going to use this in the tier intervention process. So part of the tier intervention, we already have some resources that we're using in tier intervention, and this is another resource for tier intervention to alleviate and try to meet the needs of these students before they get to Lisa. This is in the general education.
I think Mr. Beaver has a question. No, excuse me. I put him in timeout, so. Any other questions? All right, then there's a motion, right, and a second, so we're ready to vote. Was there a motion? Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Howell is made, I'm looking at the motion up here, that's why. Mr. Howell is moved to accept. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Atkinson, for the discussion? Then now we're ready to vote. And that motion does pass. Okay, next on the agenda is zoning and facilities. Farm lease.
Good afternoon, or evening, Chair Kinzer and members of the board. We did not get this in time for the work session, and so we did ask the chair if this could be added. This is the farmer who's been leasing the land at the where the Battle Creek schools are being built. The amount of land that's available now as we begin the schools has shrunk, but there's still he did an assessment about 45 acres available to rent. He has offered a lease price of $2,000. Last year he leased 80 acres and it was $3,000, and this year he's offered us $2,000 for the 45. Of course, he does some mowing on the property, helping us get it cleaned up. So we recommend that we would do that, your approval, so he can begin planting his corn.
Okay. Is there any, Mr. Atkinson, motion to approve, is there a second? Mr. Dudley seconded the motion, any discussion? Then we're ready to vote.
Sorry, Ms. Kinzer,
Oh,
I just
excuse
wanted
me,
to
I'm
note,
sorry. Huh?
the attachment did not show up on mine. I don't think it showed up on Ms. Hopkins either. Is it just similar to what we had last year?
It's on there.
It is. It's the same form we've used in the past, just
okay.
updated with the dates.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering from a technology standpoint if there's a reason why it's, because it's showing up on the main screen, but it's not showing up on mine.
Huh? All it is the letter. It's not the lease agreement. It says.
I'll look at it. I'll pull it out.
No, it's private. Changed. Updated attachment. There you go. Now hit refresh.
Hit refresh.
And I apologize, we got a new person in our office who's working on that. And if you don't, like if you pull it up and you have access to it, then it's hard to spot that.
Will says he has it, so hopefully we do. Let's see. He had to log out, log back in. Y'all want to take the time to do that? Oh, there it is. Did you get it? Everyone get it? Just keep scrolling down and it's there now. Any other discussion? We ready to vote? Motion approved. Next is financials. Mr. Laconin?
How's everyone doing this evening?
So far, so good.
Uh-oh. Let's get into numbers.
Yeah, let's
So you can see on our revenue side, I kept the colors in there, Betty. You would be pleased. This is a little later than I wanted to get financials, but with our building of the budget and increased meetings to make sure we get everything tidied up, here they are. Under transfers in, something you can see is a little weird, is that we have a negative amount fiscal year to date. That's because it's an audit adjustment carrying back to last year. So you can see that that's earned used negative 221%. So that one stands out. That's the explanation for that. And then the rest of the expenditure budget, to finish revenues up, you can see that there's a lot of red on that first page. That is basically reciprocating that it's unlikely that we will reach that budgeted goal. But we also have green on the page that has exceeded its budget. Property taxes at this point in time, since this is March's financials, there's very little property tax revenue coming in for the rest of the year. You can see our BEP is at $46.8 million, and that will increase significantly before the end of the year, before the end of the fiscal year. So that pretty much sums up revenues. And then your expenditures are detailed below. We're actually right where we should be if you take a look at all of the functions and categories in their total expenditures. I think we ended up at 67%, 67.2%, with the accrual that occurs in July for payroll, and payroll being the largest portion of our budget. That's pretty much where we would like to be. I think we may end up cutting it real tight to our amended budget line. We will be doing budget cleanup. As you can see, we have a lot of budget amendments that is cleanup on this meeting tonight, and also a recension of a budget amendment to continue cleanup. And we have to do that cleanup before the end of the year so that we don't get the exceeded budget finding, entity exceeded its operating budget. So making sure that we clean everything up and that we're within budget and take into account accounts receivable and accounts payable journal entries, we should be able to avoid that finding this year, or at least that's my hope. Then you have the sales tax collections, cash report, and then on the last page, our current fund balance. And that's all I have on
That,
financials.
that fund balance total has given us a false sense of security here.
Yeah.
Does that reflect, I mean, that doesn't necessarily reflect what it'll be when we close our books.
No, it's going to continue to drop. The property tax revenue, which is a big portion of our revenue, it's over 20 million. We get the bulk of that between December and March. So we get all that revenue in all at the same time, but we expense evenly pretty much throughout the year. So all of this is front loaded. This is the highest you will see our fund balance. Possibly it could, even out in April, but it's going to continue to drop May through September significantly because the expenditures technically don't really stop everywhere during the summer as well. And we also, like I said, we have a July accrual payroll that runs. That's a good chunk. I mean, that's $3 million with no corresponding revenue just by itself. We can expect to see this to kind of take a dive in the next 6 months.
Mr. Beaver?
Thank you, ma'am. On our open purchase orders that will carry over from one year to the next, when will they show up?
So, this is a practice that I've changed on the county side to avoid an audit finding. Typically in accounting softwares, the purchase orders carry over and create an error. Some of them don't carry over the correct line item, or they'll carry over and roll into the incorrect account, just by how the software is set up. It was doing that at local government. Skyward also has a similar issue. So what I recommended we do last year is close them all and reopen them to the correct line items. Do that process manually. We start reeling those in towards the end of the year anyways, so there's not a ton of outstanding purchase orders by the time it's, late June. And so we can reel those in, close those out, and then reopen them in the new year. And also, that way, if we roll over a purchase order and we don't cut them all off and then close them all and then reopen them manually again the next year, it rolls into an asset line item, or it's really like a fund balance reserve for all of those POs. That's where it's supposed to go, but ours was rolling into an asset line item. So it's supposed to go into a reserve for encumbrances equity account. When it goes in there, it can be spent and the checks will be cut, but you will not see the expenditures come through the budget as a regular expense. So that money can then be expensed after the fact, and you will not see it run through as a regular expense on your financial report. I also like that transparency of it. You can see it come through the financials. You can ask and say, well, what was that for? Now you would just see, if we continue to do it the way it has been done, you would just see a distribution of cash with no corresponding expenditure, because it would be directly to that reserve for prior year purchase orders line item.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any other questions about financials? Okay, moving on, we've got a recommendation to increase the threshold from 10,000 to 25. This really is a recommendation from the financial management. That's what you do in the commission. That's what
right.
It's.
I typically find this extremely beneficial for departments that purchase a lot of goods, or businesses that purchase a lot of goods. $10,000 is 9/1,000ths of 1% of our operating budget. It's very, very small. What it requires is a ton more admin time for anything that is greater than $10,000. So if it's greater than $10,000, the purchasing department either A, needs to do a bid, B, need to prove that it's a cooperative that is in compliance with the state, or 3, it's on statewide contract, and that particular individual price is guaranteed, and that's the price we actually get from the statewide contract, which vendors, we will get audit findings for things like that, but vendors will try to slide around that. And in addition to that, we can also do sole source. So if they're the only entity that provides it, then we can buy from them. Currently, we have to do that for every vendor in which the purchase is estimated to be above $10,000. This will allow us to do that for things that are above $25,000 rather than $10,000. The state also passed recently a $50,000 threshold. I feel like that's a little loose. I wouldn't want to do that. I feel like that's a lot of money to just be able to get 3 informal quotes on. So that leads me to my next point. $10,000 to $25,000. If it's a purchase, you have to provide 3 informal quotes and go with the lowest and best. If it's below $10,000, you just do your due diligence to try to purchase with the district's interest in mind. So,
Okay.
I think that this would reduce a lot of admin time at all the departments for seeking out all that additional information. It will help us purchase things in a more seamless, cost-friendly manner. And to follow that up, also, we're at the tail end of the year here. We are buying a lot of things, closing out a lot of purchase orders. So Patty goes in every morning and approves all these purchase orders and has to verify, whether all of these things that are above $10,000 meet the requirements that I've stated about the $25,000 upgrade. So it takes a lot of work, and this can help us purchase. So that's my recommendation is that we raise that bid threshold.
Mr. Sims?
I just wanted to make sure. Can you repeat what you said between, is there some policy between 10 and 25? Can you repeat that again for me?
Audit has recommended if it's above $10,000 but below $25,000 that we at least get 3 informal quotes. So those 3 informal quotes usually have to have detail about what you expect from the vendor. So you ask the 3 vendors that you're thinking about or more the same exact questions and until you get desired responses and then get a price quote. So the vendor that meets the most requirements for what you're looking for and also has comparable cost, and you can prove why that's the lowest and best vendor, that is the route you should go at that point.
Okay, so below 10, very little. Well, I mean, I guess we still have to approve it, but
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I will forget. Any purchase above $10,000, that's board policy that it comes here. So that's still going to come here for approval.
okay. All right, I think that answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, then we need a motion to approve. Mr. Beaver moves, so moved. Is there a second? Mr. Pennings, any other discussion? Then we're ready to vote. And that motion does pass. The next item is our budget amendments and the rescind budget amendments. Wonder if we want to take those together. Do you have anything to say about it, or you kind of talked about it a minute ago? So
they describe what they are for.
Correct.
There's a few in here for reallocation that are moving funds. There are also some line items that were underfunded and overfunded in other line items, so we just move those around per the department head's request. Also, we have our Crayola grant in here, and there were a few approvals that were made tonight, the dyslexia approval, and also we had the technology, moving those funds for actually, that was a previous budget amendment, disregard that. But these are reallocation of funds. We're rescinding budget amendment 8013 for the LED lighting upgrade because it's no longer a valid budget amendment because of how far it was in the past. And we've already submitted a budget amendment that encompasses the whole project. That was only for a portion of the project. So it's null and void now, okay. So we need to rescind it.
Okay. Is there a motion to take 3.3.3 and 3.3.4? Mr. Atkinson has moved to accept this. Is there a second? Mr. Sims seconded the motion. In discussion? Mr. Sims.
Very quick question. The rescinding of the LED lighting upgrade, is that money still shown in fund balance? It never left and it's not gonna come back, right?
So, that entire project ran the span of last year into early, portion of this year. So, all of those were expended out. We actually, got reimbursed as it went. So, we requested the funds as the county. We have to hold the debt, and this is technically a borrowing. So, it's a 12-year at 1% interest borrowing. So, as the school built and put all the LED lights in all the buildings, they incurred cost. Well, we would get that from the state and reimburse the schools for all the costs they incurred and all the checks that they cut. So they're fully reimbursed for all the LED upgrades as of today, and so that is reflected in the budget. The debt payments going forward are to be made by savings from installing those LED lights, according to Stan. And so the county holds the debt, and we'll make monthly payments. We got the amortization schedule. I find it odd that they make us pay monthly. We usually pay our debt twice a year, our principal in the spring and our interest in the fall, but they're doing it differently. 1% interest is hard to beat, though. I won't complain too much.
But there won't be any change in fund balance whatsoever we won't see any change in fund balance, correct?
Not due to this project.
Okay.
Not further, no.
Okay.
It's done.
Any other discussion? Then we are ready to vote. Right. I thought you were talking about this. Okay, and that vote does pass. Thank you, Mr. Laconin. Next is policies to post. The first policy is the policy on discipline. Is there any discussion about this? It was explained to us in the work session that this was an effort to make the principal's discipline manual reflect our policy so they would state the same thing. I don't know why it's taken all year to look at that. That's a concern. Any questions? None? Oh, Mr. Beaver.
Yes, ma'am. On, I guess our code of behavior and discipline, is this more a procedure than policy that we have here?
Are you talking about the procedures manual or the policy?
I'm talking about the one that we have here that's in our
6.300. That is, it's got a lot of procedure in it. That's been the Code of Discipline and Behavior policy for a long time. There is a lot of that discipline procedure in there, and I think that was requested by the administrators to have that in there. This policy was adopted well before they had the administrator's manual with all the procedures, and so that's what they have been going by until the manual was adopted.
I was thinking that this policy here was put in last year or year before last.
We've had the same policy for a long time, and it has been revised several times over the years, but this policy's been that length and with those procedures for several years.
Well, I mean, and the reason I'm asking this question, if you sit down and try to read this, I mean, it's ridiculous, you know.
I know that over the years there's been discipline committees that have kind of revised this policy. Policy committee revised this policy a couple of times. So as far as the length of it, I mean, of course it can always come back and be revised. But as far as the reason, I'm assuming just so the administrators would have something to go by prior to this administrator's handbook coming out.
But don't they have a procedure? All the administrators, principals have
I would assume
procedures?
that's more in Mr. Lang's area, but that's what this is doing. This is making the policy mirror the procedures manual that all principals go by.
Let me just, and I'm not.
No, go ahead.
I'm not interrupted, but the policy supersedes the manual, right? Okay, so if the policy all year has been different from the manual, then principals had to be using the policy, not the manual, because that supersedes it, correct?
Again, I can't answer that question.
So it had to be pretty confusing as to what they would use.
Right, and therein lies why it got changed, because I had principals reach out to me and say, we've got two conflicting things that we're going by, and so that's why we changed it.
Okay. Mr. Atkinson?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Are we changing the policy, or are we voting to change the policy, or is just the manual? Is that
No, we're voting to change the policy and make the policy reflect what the manual says. From what I'm understanding, they've been using that policy manual, but policy itself was never changed to reflect the changes in the manual.
I think the main difference between the policy and the procedure is the policy manual has to be followed. That's been voted on by the board. Procedure is up to the central office to set that up, if I'm figuring that right, but you have to follow the policy manual.
Just from the dates that are on here, it looks like we approved the policy manual before we approved this update to the policy. And, I mean, I'm happy for us to look at changing this, but I feel like, with a month left in school, I hate for us to do something rash just to try to make it mirror something that, we really don't have any documentation of what it needs to be, and I'd rather us look at that going forward, what these discipline consequences need to be. And I was of the understanding that policy trumped the policy manual. It does look like we did adopt it, but when there was a change to the policy, I feel like it's incumbent upon management to bring us revisions to the policy manual at that point, not for us to try to go back and revise the policy manual. If we want it to be consistent with the policy manual, we can certainly do that without changing this policy. I just don't know that we have enough right now to know why we're really changing this, other than to make it consistent with something that predated the policy that we approved.
I do agree, and I think I spoke to in the work session to do it at this time when you've got how many days left? 17 days of school left, and obviously I would think that Mr. Lang and all, that you all will look at discipline and look at the statistics and, where we may need to change the policy, looking at this past year, rather than just to say, oh, let's, after the fact here. I would rather not do anything about the policy at this point and have a little more information.
And I do wish Mr. Lang was here. I'm not sure if Dr. Woodard can speak on this, but I know that in some of the proceedings, they've been using what the manual says. And I think there were some maybe lenient, maybe some more stringent disciplines. And so that's why they just want to make it consistent.
I think there are inconsistencies, and I think that is the problem. And so, but yet that's not, if the policy says something, and this is not for you to make it consistent, we have to make it consistent, and principals, if the policy is what supersedes it, then the policy manual must reflect what the policy says, and if they want to change that, it should have come to us in the very beginning. Am I saying that right? Anyway. Dr. Margaret?
Would you like to add this to the June work session? Bring some principals in, have a discussion, and then start it over fresh for the 19-20 year? Would that be okay?
Why don't, in the
June work session,
June, yes, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Let's discuss, just look at the overall picture about discipline, where we are, what the statistics are, what, our concerns about it, and yes, I think the June would be perfect.
So if the board's okay, then we can go ahead and pull this off and move it to June. That's
Okay.
fine.
Is that all right, Ms. Parker?
That's fine with me, but in the meantime, I don't know how many disciplinary hearings we have, but Jake, can you advise, policy need to be followed, or does the policy manual need to be followed? Policy needs to be followed, okay. So can Mr. Lang and all the principals that are involved in that, can that be reaffirmed to them so we can at least get that inconsistency addressed?
Dr. Marzak?
Yes, ma'am, we can do that, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Like myself, don't I? Okay, next on the agenda, we have one more policy, final adoption. That's the one from Doug, and that's the policy on that. We need to vote on that as well, though. Is there a motion? What? Yeah, it's the policy. Mr. Pennings has made the motion. Is there a second? Mr. Beaver, second. Ms. Parker?
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Lukoden? Because when you were doing your presentation, I thought you said that our policy said 10,000, so that would continue. The other was just for county purposes.
This isn't changing, anything over 10,000 coming to the board. This is just waiving there's a 30-day something, help me out here, 30-day posting policy.
Right.
And, from what I understand, this has not been out there for 30 days, correct? And so the school board is voting to either waive or don't waive the 30-day posting portion of it. The sooner, the better, because of the purchases that are coming through, for the end of the year, and implementing this and getting it done immediately so that there's a clear guidance as far as what you do when you're buying things and working with our purchasing office.
This motion is to waive the 30-day so that it can make it effective. All right. Is there a motion to accept, or have we already made it? Pennings? Okay. Any other discussion? Then we're ready to vote. That motion does pass. Next on the agenda is Lean Stream. Okay, excuse. We also discussed this at the work session. Is there anything you want to add to it, Dr. Marzak? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Hearing none? Then we'll go on. Next on the agenda is the Bringham, what is that? Excuse me. The contract for SMS. Motion to approve. Do you are you wanting to approve the addition to it or just the contract? They've asked for a formal request for a 3% increase. Your motion is just to improve it, to approve. You want to explain? Yeah.
You have any questions?
My motion would be to approve it as it is right now, with the understanding that I don't know what the budget's going to look like I have a hard time making that commitment right now, but I think we could come back later and adjust that if we need to.
So your motion is to approve it as presented?
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Beaver, second. Any questions or discussion?
So make sure I'm clear, that's without the 3% increase,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Mr. Atkinson?
Mr. Breeden.
Oh, excuse me. Mr. I don't know who.
Go ahead. Okay, I guess my question is, it's kind of separate from this, but, what kind of increase do we have with Battle Creek, coming online this fall with the janitorial service?
I would have to go get my notes to answer exactly that, but we're adding, SMS is the vendor that will be taking these two schools because they do our northern section they have given us the cost. It is a square footage. Our contract says that they charge us the same thing they're charging per square foot on the other schools. So this price does include the 2 new schools.
Okay.
Yeah, it's included in this price.
Okay, and this 1.3. All right, thank you, sir.
But I don't remember how much of that exactly was for the new schools.
Mr. Atkinson?
I just wanna ask, how well is SMS doing?
We feel like they're doing a good job. Actually, we feel like a pretty significant improvement in both companies. I actually had a meeting with ABM last week, who was used to be GCA, which used to be our sole provider, and they've admitted probably having 2 companies in a little competition are making things better.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Then we're ready to vote. Okay, in other business, we have an instructional, I'm sorry, the motion passes. Dr. Marzak's telling me what time it is, and, you know, I know, we're just take our time here. No low bids, okay. So we're at FYI. Before we do adjourn, though, I want to remind everyone that there's a budget meeting tomorrow night. The budget has been loaded onto the agenda. Please study it before you come so we can have a productive meeting. I do think we're probably going to have to schedule another budget meeting next week. We do have a work session on Monday, and we'll look at that tomorrow night. I also spoke to a few of you beforehand about something. I'll see the others that I didn't as well. I know that all of you were concerned about Ms. Morency and her family, and so we'll talk about that afterwards, okay? Any other thing to do? Also on here, and I want you all to, I know all of you, there'll be a test on the radio show that Dr. Marzak and I did. I know all of y'all listened to it. Did you really? Oh my gosh, I thought my husband was the only one that listened to it. But, and he was so thrilled because he could turn me off, you know. But I do think it's going to be a really good thing. I think next time it's Roger White, and there's a whole group of people, and some of you all as well, will be asked to do it, and I think it's really great publicity for us as well. Also, there's a presentation on here about Dr. Marzak's PowerPoint, so in your leisure, when you have something to do, but do this, look at that as well. It is on here, isn't it?
No, that's for May. That's for next month. That's okay.
I looked at it this morning, so I was on the wrong agenda. So y'all have that to look forward to. You know, that'll be a 45-minute presentation at the work session. Any other comments from board members? Then I'll motion to adjourn by Mr. Atkinson, a second by Mr. Howell. All those in favor? Aye.